Today, most people look towards the British Isles and see one people. Indeed, they proclaim themselves as one united kingdom. But inside this kingdom there are three different groups: the English, the Welsh, and the Scots. Are these the same peoples? What is the story behind these three groups? They always got along? Let's dive into this video to know more about this mysterious island. We are between the 3rd and the 4th century AD, and Europe seems to be divided into two groups, Roman and Barbarian. By this period of time, the Roman Empire has stopped their expansion in barbarian lands and decided to halt and preserve what they have. The reason behind this decision is due to many factors, as the empire being overstretched across the Mediterranean all the way to Britannia, devastation of the civil wars, crushed economy, and also because it was already hard to repel attacks from outsiders, let out alone invading them. As consequence, the barbarians having eyes, ears, and a mind of their own, they also became aware of this through the years and started to become more and more bold towards the empire, starting launching countless raiding parties across the border and coming back fast before an imperial army arrived to face them. But with all these tribes from the frontier of the Danube and Rhine River all the way to Hadrian walls, attacking the empire from all directions, it was real hard to face all the threats at once. In some cases, these tribes would stay in Roman soil for a long period of time, taking anything they could, as they knew Rome would take a long time defeating another tribe on the other side of the empire and arrive to meet them in a pitched battle. And to make matters even worse, the Huns are invading these tribes and forcing them to move towards the frontier with Rome, and being against the wall between its sword point, the empire being the wall and the Huns being the sword. In the barbarians' mindset, Rome seemed like the better of two evils. First being the Goths. They made a deal with the Byzantine emperor to come into the empire as friends and allies. They were allowed to settle in their side of the border with the condition of living peacefully among Roman peoples and aiding them defend the border from the Huns. Therefore the Goths crossed the Danube River and settled rather peacefully for the time being. But that would soon start to change, as in the Goths' perspective the Romans were not treating them as equally, as they were not sending them enough food, resulting in countless raids in the area to gather food to survive, and being used as cannon fodder for the front line, as if the Goths were more expandable than the Romans. This culminated into a war inside the borders of the empire, with Goths raiding and murdering all across the land, which had crushing consequences, as the other tribes outside of the empire saw it as an opportunity to settle inside the empire, as Rome seemed more fragile now than ever. This resulted in Rome having to abandon some faraway outposts in order to concentrate their defense more close to the center of power in Italy. As Rome left Britannia, it had many consequences for the peoples inhabiting these land, as the Britons that lived there at the time were not the same savage, brave, fierce peoples before the Romans settled in. They became Romanized, much more tolerant and comfortable with their lives. In contrast, the Britons of the north remained as they were savage, brave and fierce and bloodthirsty for plunder and wealth. Therefore, the moment the Romano-Britons were without the protection of the Roman legions, these tribes climbed Hadrian's wall and was a non-stop chaos. They invaded, killed, and enslaved the peoples that Rome left unprotected, and it went on for a long period of time, until the Romano-Britons grew tired of this non-stop darkness and made a tough decision. Since Rome left and had no intention to come back, as they had bigger problems to solve with Huns pushing other tribes into the empire, there was no possible they could ask Rome for a military aid in Britannia. So they made a tough decision. They sent words across the sea towards Germanic lands and asked a few tribes for help. These tribes being the Saxons, Angles, and Jutes. Indeed, they answered the call for help and came into the British Isles and repelled the raiding Britons back to the north. But upon seeing how easy it was to come into Britannia to repel the northern Britain, and how fragile the position of Romano-Britons were, they seized the opportunity to seize the land and went from saviors to villains. They took hold, most eastern Britain at the early stage, and would push the Romano-Britons further westwards. But also these Germanic peoples start to fight amongst each other until they became mostly Anglo-Saxons with many kingdoms among them. And then started the Viking Age, and countless waves of Norsemen and Danes started first coming as raiders, then as settlers, which resulted in the Danelaw and subdued Britons and Anglo-Saxons alike for a long period of time, until the tables turned and Saxons started taking the fight to the Danes and expelled them from Britain. And from this Anglo-Saxon effort to expel the invaders, England, which means land of the Angles, was born, and as consequence tried to seize the whole island, invading the Britons to the north and to the west for many centuries. And new countries were formed, resulting in the three kingdoms that we have now in Britain, these being England, Wales, and Scotland, which now form the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button below for more content like this. Stay curious, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next video.